And welcome everybody to our Building Microservices with Spring Data, Cassandra, and Stargate.io workshop. We'll get going here in a minute, but first we have a really cool music video for you to watch. All right, and welcome everybody to our workshop today. I am David Jones-Gilardi, joined by Cedric Lundvon. Hello, Cedric.
Hello, everybody. So happy to be with you, everybody, for this new workshop. Everybody's back to work. We are in September today. So today, David, we will cover this Spring world, Spring Boot, Spring Data, and all the magic of the Java world.
That's right. And by the way, I still have that song kind of rocking in my head over here. I hope you guys like that video. That video was fun.
All right.
That's right.
Yeah. Above the cloud, miss me. You know, maybe we will put back that song in the end.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. We could do that. We'll put it on the end. All right. So, hello. Well, how about we just start off real quick, Cedric? A little bit about you, Cedric. Who are you?
So I'm Cedric, and I'm leading the developer advocacy team here at DataStax. I'm a Java geek. I've been doing Spring for 14 years already. Yeah, it's take a bit. I've created an open source framework in Java, of course. It's called FF4J, feature flipping for Java, enable and disable part of your application at runtime with no restart. And like everybody on the team, I'm a Cassandra expert, and I do some training, teaching, and fun workshop like today with all of you. I would be happy to have everybody in my network. So you have my Twitter handle, GitHub handle, and my LinkedIn. It's the same as my Twitter. So, invite me and I will be happy to answer you. What about you, David?
Oh, let's see. So my list, I don't have as much of a filled out list as you, Cedric. I should put more things on here is what it comes down to. But like Cedric, I'm also a Java geek, coded in a bunch of different languages, been doing, whether it's IT programming, database administration, stuff for like 25 years. So thankfully I don't have too much white in that picture that's in my beard just yet, but it is coming. And like Cedric though, I'm a Cassandra expert, advanced Stargate user, all that kind of thing. And same deal. If you ever want any follow-up or anything like that, you have questions, you want to reach out, you can find me on both LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub, whatever, all over the place, either at SonicDMG or LinkedIn. I actually use my real name. And, what's funny is I just realized, Cedric, at the top of the slide, it has Ryan's name. So,
it's funny.
Let's move on. I'm apparently Ryan Mulford as well. So hello, everybody. And, Cedric and I may be hosting today, but with us, we have a whole team of folks that are, in the chats, that are there to support. This is meant to be an interactive session. So if you've not joined us for one of these workshops before, ask your questions. No question is dumb or anything like that. And we will try our best to get at all of them. So just a couple housekeeping items. So we are streaming to both YouTube and Twitch. Chances are you're watching us on YouTube right now. We do use Twitch as more of a backup, right? So if you go to Twitch DataStax Devs, that's one way you can view us. Now, the key thing to really point out there is that we're watching the chat on YouTube and in Discord. And Discord is the link you see there up in the top right-hand corner. That dtsx.io/Discord. That'll bring you to our Discord channel. Here's the big difference between the YouTube chat and the Discord channel. The Discord channel will persist after the session is over. So the session is 2 hours. So we'll be with you in the YouTube chat. But if you want to follow up after the session, or if you've got some questions, or you need to share your screen or something, Discord is totally the place to go. We have a huge community of other Cassandra users and coders and stuff that are there, something like 15,000 now. So join us on the Discord channel if you want to continue the conversation. And then on the bottom, you'll see menti.com. We're going to use that here in a moment. So we use Menti to ask you a set of questions, but then later on, we're going to do our swag quiz. So you're going to want, if you want swag, if you want to win some swag, you have to compete against everybody. That's always fun. But then menti.com is the place to go. Okay, so the tools that we are going to use today, I saw some questions coming in earlier about, what are there prerequisites? Do I need to install anything? No, actually, you don't need to install anything. Everything that we're going to do today, we provide up in the cloud, and using a combination of GitHub, Gitpod, which is like VS Code in the cloud through GitHub, and then AstraDB for our data layer. Now, we'll explain all of these things and such. You will need a GitHub account. So if you do have one, when we start going through the exercises, you'll want to log in. If not, you'll want to create one if you're going to follow along. The key thing is all the tools we use, everything is free, right? There's nothing here that's going to charge you anything. So you should feel safe from that standpoint. Okay, then, if you're kind of trying to get a gauge of where is the difficulty level of this one, right? A little bit between low and medium, really. The way that we build these workshops, they are built to be self-service. They are built so you can follow step by step. So if you came into this not knowing Java, Spring, any of the tools or whatever, you should be able to follow the workshop step by step and be able to do all the things, right? Now, for those of you who are more veterans and if you're experts or whatever, you might choose to clone the GitHub repo and run it locally and such like that. There might be a bit more of a challenge though. And that's really where the Gitpod piece comes into play, because we actually pre-configure a lot for you in Gitpod. So everybody can just start and be on the same page, and we have to spend an hour trying to configure everybody's IDEs. So we do recommend that you go with us in Gitpod. But like I said, if you want to run it locally, that's up to you. But generally speaking, not terrible difficult, kind of like between low and intermediate.
No, because really in 2 hours, there is no big time for us to ask you to really code something. So the code will be there and we will review the code, navigate the code. You will have it to run it on your machine afterward, get all the knowledge. But most of the code is done for you already.
Yes. All right. And then if you want to get yourself some bragging rights and earn yourself a badge, badge. Here's what you do. All right. In the workshop repository, there is a homework section. You just follow the instructions in the homework section, because we will be giving you some homework. And once you've done that, you submit your homework. And again, the instructions are there, right there in the workshop repo. Then you'll earn yourself a badge. What's cool about these badges is that you get a verified URL that's just yours that will that you can include in something like LinkedIn. You can put it in your feature section. You can include the URL and it'll pop that badge in your LinkedIn. Things like that, right? So some bragging rights. We have a bunch of others. I want to say we have about a dozen now of different workshops that we do. If you so choose, earn your badge and get the bragging rights. Okay, so finally, let's go to menti.com. We'll ask you some questions. So I'm going to put a screen up here. You should see a QR code that you can just scan with your phone on the right-hand side. Or if you go to menti.com and enter in the code you see at the bottom, and do me a favor, you'll see a little thumbs up, right? Give us the thumbs up. Let us know that you are with us. And let's see. Yep, you see, I'm seeing the thumbs up come in already. Give us more thumbs up, because for the amount of folks that we have on here today, we have almost 500 of you with us today. So we should have a lot more folks in Menti, that's for sure.
Yes. Dropping the link to Menti. So if this is the first time you attend one of these interactive sessions, please open a new tab in your browser, enter menti.com and enter the code either on screen, also copy in the chat. You can also open your mobile phone and scan the QR code to be routed to the proper quiz. In the beginning, 3-4 questions with no challenge. In the end, we go back and we do have a contest. If you answer fast, you get points, and the 3 fastest among you will get some swag for free, shipped to their location everywhere in the world.
All right, and I see a bunch of code. I almost have 200 people in the Menti. I'll give it another minute. And I did see some questions, and I think Alex is all over them. I think I saw you answer some too, Cedric, about what makes Cassandra different, Cassandra and Astra different from an RDBMS, right? And just very quickly, I'll say one huge difference is scalability. You can scale Cassandra indefinitely, whether that is a handful of nodes or thousands of nodes. Two great examples that people are familiar with would be Apple and Netflix. They have Cassandra clusters that they use for their core operations, handle things like tens of millions in operations a second using Cassandra, and that's because it horizontally scales. It's extremely robust and resilient. You can not luge, that's a new word. You can lose significant portions of your database and still have an active, available database. And then it's known for its performance at scale. So even if you scale at 1,000 nodes, you can still maintain extremely tight either millis or microsecond performance and writes and millis and reads, right? And so these are kind of like some major pieces there to answer that question. All right, let's see. We've got 300 in here. I think we're probably pretty good to move on to the questions. What do you think, Cedric?
I think we're good. We're good. Anyway, we need to move on because we need to have the session recorded in the 2 hour. I won't
That's
lose your
right.
time. I know for some of you it's already late. So let's keep moving.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so first one. How much experience do you have with Spring Boot? Oh, Cedric, we have a good percentage of folks that feel confident with the technology. Prepare for awesome questions. Prepare.
Okay, so you played the demo and I got the challenged question. Okay. Fair
I'm just
enough,
gonna punt all the challenging questions over to Cedric. Why do any work? Chirag, today it is 2 hours. The session is 2 hours. All right, so how much have you used Astra or Stargate? And if you've never used it or heard about it, that's totally cool. You will today. Oh, we have some folks that have already attended. Welcome back. Thank you. Oh, wow. Look at that. Most of the folks answering have never used them before. What a net folks today.
Okay. Hope you will enjoy the ride.
Okay.
And we can see also that we have people returning. So
yeah, that's awesome.
The experience. So thank you for that.
We'll hopefully make it better today. All right, wonderful. Going on to the next question. Which APIs are you currently developing with? And you can pick multiple here. I see Alex is on the chat.
Oh yeah, you cannot miss it right now.
Cannot miss it. Alex is all over that chat.
Yeah, he's the bad cop, right
now. I love the SOAP web services help me. SOAP was so good for so long. SOAP was such a good improvement. But notice, Cedric, we do have a majority of folks, at least compared, filtering out RESTful, that are still using SOAP today. And that's not allowed. I'm not laughing at you, by the way. Like it's still relevant. Like people are still totally using it.
Oh yeah, of course.
All right. Wow, a lot of REST folks in here today. All right, well, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna definitely experiment with a set of
so
APIs
you will
today.
do REST today as well. So
slippery soap. That's funny, Samant. Slippery soap. WebSockets. We do have WebSockets. All right, cool. All right, and have you been to any of our workshops before? I'd like to think that there's 28. I'm gonna say it's 28.
Okay, let's say 20. That's fine.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Okay.
Oh wow, blew past. Okay. Woo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Percentage-wise, I think we were pretty right. 1 quarter, bit less than 1 quarter.
Yeah.
And that's cool. So for newcomer, cool. Hope you will enjoy the experience. You will see it's all about interactivity as we do right now. Question, quiz, and answer.
That's right. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for answering. So here's what I want you to do now. Leave your Menti window open. We'll come back to this later for the swag quiz, right? But for now, we're going to go over to some of the content. And I will pass this over to Mr. Cedric, who's going to start talking to you about all the fun. You ready, Cedric?
Ready.
All right, let's do it. There you go.
Lag. Okay. So I will play in front of you the demo that you will run in a couple of minutes. So we will build the Stargate. I don't know if you know about the TV show. I'm pretty fan. So we will have a database that will store the planet with the coordinates in the Stargate. We'll check one of the planets. So here I entered Chulak. Hope you're here as well, the video. And then you enter the coordinates.
So epic. So epic.
Opening the vortex. And here we go. So this is exactly what we will build. What you will build using a real database, a REST API, and a Spring Boot application. Okay, we could have used, the pet store or something to deliver fruits, but this one is much fun, right? Okay, so hope you are excited. Let's get rolling. Back to you, David.
All right, so let's see. Well, I guess with that, Cedric, do you want to go right into the hands-on, or do you want to do you want to talk to some of the slides after the demo?
I think we can start by creating the database.
All right, let's go ahead and do it. So let me go ahead and grab the screen back. Boom. So, and let's also drop the workshop repo that we are in. So we'll go ahead, and someone beats me to it, but repo, I'm going to put in caps repo, and I'm going to spam it. There you go.
Yeah, I do have it as well. So let me, I will copy the repo here. I also saw a question regarding the homeworks. So as usual, the homeworks are pretty easy. You just redo the steps that we do in front of you. If you cannot finish on time, do a screenshot and share with us.
Okay. Well, the question I see is, what is data stacks? We'll talk more about that. We're actually going to talk, you're going to see this more. We're the company. So DataStax is the company behind Apache Cassandra, AstroDB, and some of the things we're going to use today. So we'll talk more about that as we go. All right, so hopefully for those of you who are going to join us, here's the format, right? I'm just going to step through the repo with you, right? And I'm going to go through the steps. Now, I'm not going to be reading all the text and everything. We build these to be totally self-service. Right? So if you did this outside the session today, totally cool. But I'm going to tell you what section we're in. I'm going to kind of walk you through what you need to do, and I'm going to do it along with you. All right? So the first thing we want to do, hopefully you're at the repo, is go to step 1, create AstroDB instance. Now, if you notice, there's this link right here, this astrodatastax.com. Now, none of the Markdown doesn't allow us to use a target blank, so it's not going to auto launch into a new tab. So make sure when you click the links that you're either right-clicking, say open the link in a new tab, or control-click, however you want to do it. I'm going to control-click to open this into a new tab. And you'll find that we're going to do this with all of the links that we're going to use today. Now, if you've never used AstroDB before, this is a Cassandra as a service in the cloud. It's a serverless platform. It's fully managed, right? So if you're familiar with Cassandra at all, and you're used to working with Cassandra databases, this will just allow you to spin one up in a couple minutes. If you've never used AstroDB before, you're going to want to register. Registration is completely free. You can use your GitHub account, your Google account, or you can just put in your own credentials. Now, I'm already myself registered, so I'm just going to sign in. And tell that to go away. There we go. Do this. All right, so now if you're brand new, if you're registering for the first time, you're going to see a screen a little bit different than this one. It's going to ask you, though, it's going to say, there should be a button there. It says start for free. That's what you want. You want to start for free, right? And then once you do that, you'll come to a screen that looks something like this, right? The create a database screen. This is where you want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And notice in the instructions, so if I just start stepping down a little bit, right? In step 1B here, we're going to give you the database name and the key space name we want you to use today. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these, and I'm going to put them in the fields. Now, you might be asking, if you're new to Cassandra, what's a key space, right? A key space is just the container of tables. right? So we're saying, I want to create a database called workshops. And in it, I'm going to create a container of my tables per my domain, right? So the Stargate domain for my Stargate app, probably. And this will contain any of the tables we're going to create for our app. If you're coming from the relational world, a key space is like a database or a schema, very similar. Now, once you have filled out the basic details here, again, using workshops and Stargate from the instructions, if I scroll down a little bit, and you'll notice that there's these nice and animated GIFs in here, so if you want to do this later on or something, you can always follow along. But the next thing I want to do is I want to select a provider and region. Notice all 3 major cloud providers are here. Now, what's cool is you can pick any of them. It doesn't matter. I'll pick Google Cloud today. Just pick a region close to you, right? I'm in the Eastern US, so I will pick Virginia. And then create database will light up, and I'll click that. Now, I just want to be really clear that when you choose any of the providers, you don't need to log into them. You don't need to have an account with them. You are not billed by them, nothing, right? And this is all in the current free plan, if you notice up here. This is, so anything that we're going to do today is completely free. The reason why we give you the multiple cloud providers is so you have choice, right? That gives you flexibility and choice of what vendor you want to go with. Once you've gotten to this point, though, and you've created the database, you should see something that looks like this. It might say initializing or pending. Once you're here, give us a thumbs up. Let us know that your database is being created.
So we are creating a Cassandra database. It's a NoSQL distributed database with multiple nodes. So multiple servers have to be started. This is why it will take between 1 to 5 minutes. Right. But do not worry, we do have time. And this is also the reason why we ask you to create the DB in the beginning, right? Because we can do a bit of slides, and when we come back, the database is running.
Exactly. So with that, while everybody is creating their databases, Cedric, did you want to go back over to some of the slides?
Okay,
or do
so
you want
looking at the question, we start having thumb up. I think we are good. Just as we got the question, so a key space is the logical group of tables, like a schema in Oracle, if you wish. In the single database, you can have multiple key space, and the recommended practice is to have 1 key space per application, because at the key space level, you will decide the role, the profile, the permissions, and also where the data live, because data is replicated on multiple servers.
Oh, by the way, Shrinu, the link for Astra is here in the repo. So if you go to step 1A, right, you'll see the link right there in the repo. Just go ahead and open that one up into a new tab.
Oh, yeah, we are doing the exercises with you. So no magic. We, as you, copy paste the instruction to make that super easy to follow.
Exactly. Oh, Ivan Garcia, when you create the Astra DB database, you are starting with a 3-node cluster. That's where it starts. The serverless piece means that it's elastic, and it will scale up and scale down with you automatically, right? And that's to keep your cost of ownership low. Again, we're using the free tier here, so you don't need to worry about that, but it is a 3-node cluster to start. Okay. And here, the database and key space are in step 1B. You'll see them here. And step 1B, workshops and Stargate. All right, Cedric, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I'm okay. So question regarding Spring Boot, Spring Data, Stargate will come in the presentation. No need to get the answer right now. Cloud version of Cassandra, yes. So Astra is indeed a cloud distribution for Astra, and it's serverless. That means we build this distribution in a way that as soon as you need more power, the Astra platform will add new nodes to your Cassandra cluster. This is how it works.
That's right.
Serverless in the cloud mean really scaling as you need, more or less.
All right, Cedric. Okay. What do you think? Should you want me to go on to the next one, or you want to go ahead and do some slides and get into some of the content?
Okay, let's do a bit of slide, I guess.
All right. And all right, I'm showing your screen.
Oh, you share my screen?
Yes. Seeing the fourth wall here. Unless you want me to just you want me to go through them and.
No. Okay, so you've seen the demo. What we ask you today is to find the coordinates of planet Chulak in the Milky Way to save Tilk from the Goa'uld Apophis. So Astra, the platform that we have shown you in the cloud, is the database. And Stargate, you will see, is a data gateway on top of Cassandra to expose some API. So before Stargate, to use Cassandra, you would have to know the Cassandra query language. And hopefully we will make things easier using the Stargate. Okay, the demo, we done that. So Astra platform, at the core of the platform, Astra DB is Apache Cassandra. Okay, serverless, scale as you need. And on top of it, a data gateway, a proxy, if you wish, exposing APIs. So RESTful APIs, like you all love, GraphQL as well, and document-oriented APIs, because by default, Astra using some column-oriented NoSQL, so tables. But some of you mostly use document JSON, like you would do with Mongo, save JSON document, retrieve document, and Stargate also allow you to do so. To run the hands-on, instead of having you installing Java, Maven, and do an IDE, we will use Gitpod. It's an IDE, free cloud-based IDE in the cloud, and we will start and build a Spring Boot application using Spring Data for the data layer and the software development kit, but we will again come back to that later. Okay, so we did the step 2, set up our database. Okay, and you know what?
Let's finish off the.
Yeah, I think you can move on, and with
I think everybody's databases should be good to go by now. So
yes,
I will.
Now that you do have the database, we can go back to hands-on mode and start creating some tables.
Alrighty. Okay, so with that, most of you, if not all of you, should notice your workshop's database is in an active state, right? So what I'm going to do, we're going to start at step 2, create table and insert data. So we're just going to go over some basic SQL commands and get some of the schema in place, some of our data model in place. Now, if you've done things in a relational database before, CQL is going to feel just like SQL, right? CQL is actually a subset of SQL. The syntax is going to look very similar here. So what I want to do is I want to, on my active workshops database, I'm just going to click on it, and that's going to go to the detail view. I'm going to see a set of tabs up here at the top, and I want to go to CQL console, right? Now, when I load this will automatically log me in. This is what you're seeing here in step 2A, right? I'm just going to click on that, and I should see a prompt that says token at CQLSH. Now, at step 2B, we're just giving you some initial commands, right? So this describe key spaces, it's just giving you a way to describe and look at view all the key spaces you have. You see that we have the Stargate key space that we created when we started this. So now I want to use it. I'm just telling CQL, hey, I want to use that particular key space because now I'm going to go ahead and create a table, right? So I'm going to move to step 2C. And by the way, I will give everybody a moment to catch up and stuff as I go through some of these. So if you think I'm talking a little fast, I will give you a moment to breathe. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is I'm going to create our Stargate chevrons table, right? So if you remember during the demo, when Cedric was clicking on the various chevrons and everything, we actually load all the chevrons from the real show into our database and use them in the app. Again, if you take a look at the syntax here, you'll see that, I have a create table. Here's the table name, a set of some fields, what their types are, what the primary key is, so on and so forth. So pretty familiar to something like SQL. Now, once I have my chevrons table, I want to populate it with some data. So by the way, I don't know if you're noticing it, some browsers will have this nice little copy widget. So you can just hover over and click. If not, you'll just copy the whole thing. And I'm literally going to paste that right in. And then once you've done that, you want to go to step 2E, and we're going to count. I should have 39 of these. There we go. I've got 39. Yeah, Niraj, how to create table and insert data. So in the repo, if you go to step 2C right here, you'll see us creating the table. Literally copy these commands right into the console. If the screen is not visible, ensure in YouTube that your quality setting is set to at least 720p, because we are streaming in HD, so it should be perfectly clear. Okay. All right, so once you've done this, and we're down at step 2E, we do our count, we should have 39 chevrons. And then this next query, we just want to filter now. You know, in the first query, we're not filtering anything, we're just saying count all the chevrons. In the second one here, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, well, I want to grab the chevrons that are from the Milky Way galaxy, right? And you should see a list like this. Make sure, Arnab, that after your use command that you do have a semicolon. It sounds like if you're seeing an improper use command, there may be something incorrect in the command itself. So just make sure you definitely have that semicolon. All right, so let me know if you're here. Anushka, if you're having a hard time pasting the code for some reason, like if a Control V isn't working, you can always just right-click and paste, right? That might be the way to do it.
It's just too fast, David. You know, I tried to enter all the answer on text, you know, not to make you blah, 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 no key space have been specified. Yes, so for Cedric, you really need to say use space Stargate semicolon in a single line.
Yeah, here.
So repo name Stargate.
Like this. Use space Stargate semicolon, just like that. All right, so give us a thumbs up if you've gotten to a point where you have the initial data set in place for the chevrons, and you've performed the query and you filter on the Milky Way galaxy. Go ahead, give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're here. I'll give everybody a moment.
Yes, please. You went fast on the first range of queries. So in the beginning, we created a key space. So I saw the question twice. So a key space is a logical group of tables. It's like a schema in Oracle. So in a key space, multiple tables. Then you use SQL console, which is this black screen shown by David. And we enter some Cassandra query language command. Navigate to the key space, use Stargate, and insert, create a table and insert values inside that table. So as you can see, it's pretty close to SQL, right? As of now, we say, oh, it's really like MySQL or Postgre. I do not see any big difference as of now. And as of now, yeah, that's true. But you know, when you design a table in Cassandra, it should be designed for your queries. And when you create a primary key, when you execute some commands, the primary key must be in the where clause.
Oh, I see a question from Yabir. How do I see 2D? I'm assuming you're asking, once I've inserted these, how do I then see them? How do I list them back out? That's actually what we're doing in 2E. Let me know if I've kind of read your mind correctly, but that's exactly what we're doing here. All right, I am seeing a bunch of thumbs up. I saw a couple folks weren't exactly sure like where to go, so I did pop the instructions for step 2.
And that's great, because I feel that we are running fast today. We are great on time, so that's super cool that so many of you are able to keep up. Again, but you know, the principle is let's work together. There is no point for us to rush super quick. It will be less interactive, so you know, we can pause a bit, wait for you. And if you're already at the same stuff as us, you can keep moving. You know, we are only step 3. There are 13 steps. So, you know, it should be self-service. Go at your pace.
Exactly. And Shadi, if you've got 39 rows, you're all good to go. You're all good to go from that standpoint.
So there are 39 chevrons in the Milky Way. You know, I've totally used the wiki of the Stargate TV show. I'm kind of a fan. So by the way, those are the real chevron, as you can see on screen and see the pictures. And you know, if you're fan of the TV show or the movie, it all started by a movie. I think it was in 1993. And you know, so to use the Stargate, you need first to enter the code of the Earth, and then six chevron to to dial your destination. And overall, the full code is 7 chevrons.
Yeah, and just a couple questions I see. Manish, how to maximize the console? You currently can't. Funny enough, we actually do have a request in to our Astra UI team to make that a reality at some point, because you're not the first person to ask for that feature. And then Nova, hey, Nova Crazy, is asking, hey, if I'm following along, am I supposed to take the screenshots to submit? You don't need to take screenshots of the whole thing as you go through. You can literally give us a screenshot at the end, and we will know that you got through everything.
If the app is running,
yes,
we know that you have gone through all the steps.
So, right, so save yourself some trouble, right? Wait till the end, just take a screenshot of the running app, just like Cedric said. We'll know you've gone through the steps in order to get there. So yeah, save yourself the trouble. Okay, I feel like, what do you think, Cedric? I feel like we can move on to loading the full data set.
I think, yes.
Okay. Suganth, what is CQL? CQL is Cassandra query language. It is a subset of SQL, right? That comes from the relational database world that's been around for decades. So it is just the query language that we're using here to issue commands against the database. Now, what's cool, though, is you're going to see later on, we're going to use some other APIs, right? CQL is not the only way that you can talk to Cassandra. You can also do it with a REST API. You can do it with GraphQL. You can do it with the document API, so on and so forth. So we'll be exploring some of that. All right, so I'm going to move on now to step 3, load dataset as a CSV. So we've loaded this initial Chevron dataset, but we want to put a lot more data into the system, right? So there is another piece of functionality where you can load smaller datasets within about 40 megabytes into the system, and that's what we're going to do here now. Now notice this big green download dataset button. What I want you to do on this is right click and say save link as, right? So I want to save this. Now you want to save it as a CSV. So depending on the operating system you're on, you may need to specify this. And in my Mac, I do. So I'm going to say destinations.csv, and I'm going to save that. And I'm going to replace the one I had. And then once it shouldn't be too big. Now, once I have this file, notice up in the top right-hand corner of Astra, there's this load data link here, this button. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to say, hey, all right, give me something to load. So what I want to do is I want to grab my destinations.csv. I can just drag and drop it over here, or if I click on that, it'll give me a little file dialog. I can just point to the file I downloaded, something like that. But either way, it says, okay, it's got the upload, and you'll see that the next button down here will light up. Yeah, Lego, yeah, if it's showing in Windows text, just change it to all files in .csv. Or if you've already downloaded it as text, you can just rename it to .csv. Yeah, either way. Yeah, Kishore, yeah, the CQL console resets if you go to, yes, because when you're actually in the CQL console tab, it is actually logging a session right there, it's and such. When you navigate away from that, you're losing that. So when you go back into it, it's going to relog you in. If you don't like that, one thing you can do is just open that in another tab, right? You can just open another tab and keep it open if you want. Okay, so once you get this next button, you've pulled your file in. I want to go ahead and click on that. Now, what this is going to do is going to give you a preview of the data from the CSV file. So what I want to notice, or I want you to notice, is notice here, I've got a whole set of columns up in the top, the galaxy, the name, different chevrons, and everything like that. And then, like I said, it'll give you a preview of the data. And this is just to kind of, while you're setting some of the fields and the options that are here, you can actually see the CSV that you're working with. So I'm going to scroll down here to step 3D. I want to define the target table. Now, it's already chosen one for you. So it has already chosen the destinations table, which is correct. That was defined itself, via the CSV. So that is the table we want. We want to create a new table called destinations, and that's where we want that to go. And then you'll see in the bottom here, there are some drop downs. The first one is our partition key. Now, something to really kind of just explain for a moment in Cassandra, right? Cassandra, in Cassandra, the base unit of access is something called a partition. This is, by the way, how even if you have a Cassandra database that is 1,000 nodes large, how access times can be very, very, very small because these partitions are literally the physical address of where your data is going to live, right? So what's happening here is when we select, and we're gonna, the option that we want to select here is galaxy. So we're saying we want to partition by galaxy in our data set, which means that all of the rows that are stored in the same galaxy, in this case Milky Way, they'll actually be stored in a partition called, Milky Way. So later on, when I go to like query from that or something, if you notice in the query that we accessed up here, this one, right? Like this, when I do something like this, if I'm partitioning by, in this case, galaxy, and let's say that I then in my where clause, I say where galaxy equals Milky Way, I'll actually be able to get directly to the address of where that partition lives very, very fast. This is just a mechanism that Cassandra uses to kind of handle the distribution of your data around your cluster. It's not something you have to actively worry about. More, what are you partitioning by, right? So for this, just choose galaxy, right? That's the only thing we're going to have here. And then clustering columns are a way to either define sorting or uniqueness. So we're saying here, then I want to go ahead and sort by name, right? Once I've done those two things, and again, this is in the instruction itself. Once I've done these two things, I have galaxy is my partition key, name is my clustering column. I have my next button. I want to hit next. Okay. All right. Now this next section, there we go. I got that word out right. Step 3E, I'm just going to choose. Okay, so what is the target database? Well, we created our workshops database earlier. And then what's the target key space? Well, in this case, we've only got one, the Stargate one. These are if you remember when we created the database in the key space, these are the same values we started with, right? So we're putting our destinations table in the Stargate key space, right? Within our workshops database. Once I've chosen my key space, I should have my next button. And then I will click that. Now you'll get a message, right? You're going to say, hey, data is being imported. Now what this does, this actually batches it up in the background, right? It's not going to do it actively here in the foreground. It's going to batch it up in the background. You should get a message like you saw on my screen and an email, right? It's going to say, hey, I've got your request. We're going to batch up your data and we're going to send it in. And then it will let you know once it's done.
And, everything that we have done so far, there is nothing related to Spring or Java or anything.
Right.
But we like to start by explaining and, setting the scene, having the database ready to rock, and then we move to code.
That's right. That's right. Alrighty. Let's see. I guess, do I want to wait for my email? Or let's see. Shouldn't take too long.
Can I ask why this operation is asynchronous? All these bulk loading operation are put in a queue, and we have dedicated workers to load the data like that. And it's, in a way easier than using Cassandra query language, because you just provide the raw data as a CSV file and you're good to go.
That's right. All right, so I have my email that says that the job has started. It shouldn't take too long for that to come into play. While I'm waiting for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to the CQL console. All right, so if you remember this tab over here, I'll click on that. And was pointed out before, it's going to relog me in. And I don't have my data just yet, I don't think. Oh, I do, actually. Okay, I did. I already got it. So my data has been loaded in, right? Here we go. Let's go. Boop. There we go, right? So you can see that now my Stargate.destinations table is populated with a lot more data. Now, we're saying limit 10. We're only showing 10 of them. There's a lot more than that in the data set. Okay. All right, let us know once you've gotten here. As a matter of fact, actually, we can create the Astra token while we're waiting for this. Yeah, why don't we just move on? So if you've gotten to the point where you have loaded your data set in the background, fine, let it do its thing, right? I'm going to move on to step 4 here, where we're going to create our token. Now, the token is important. Why? Because, AstraDB is a cloud-based service, and that means that there is an endpoint that is exposed publicly out so you can access it through your applications and such. Clearly, that needs to be secure, right? You don't have your production database just wide open to everybody, and that's where the token comes into play. So here's what we want to do. Up on the top left-hand corner, there is this organization dropdown. You see a little dropdown. I'm going to click this, and I want to go to organization settings. Now, in this particular case, what I want you to do is, again, either right-click and say open link a new tab, or I'm going to, middle-click or whatever. I want you to open this into a new tab, and here's why. We're going to come back to this. You're going to need this when we are setting up the properties in our application. Okay, so just put it in a new tab. I'll then navigate to token management, and I want to select the role database administrator. Once I've chosen a role, you'll see generate token lights up. I'll click that, and look at this. Boom, I have my credentials. Now, key thing here. You see this download token details button? Make sure to download your token details. You will only be shown this screen once. But this is part of, by the way, why I put this in another tab, why I suggested to do that. Because later on, when we're putting stuff in code, I'm going to just pull them from here, right? If you don't want to do it that way, totally up to you. Just make sure you download those details so you do have them to use later. But once you've gotten here, give us a thumbs up, because at this point, we're good to move on to some of the content, but we want to make sure that you've gotten here with us. Okay, I see a thumbs up coming in.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, we're not going on to step 5. I'm just kind of scrolling up. Database administrator, Lego. Yeah, that's the role you want for this one. Now, while we're talking about that, by the way, we're doing that for ease. In your real applications, you probably don't want to expose database administrator. Maybe something like a read-write user or read-only, depending on what you're doing. So you might want to take a little bit more look at those in the documentation to kind of see what fits. But for now, database administrator is totally cool. Cool, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up come in.
That's great. Congratulations.
Now, by the way, I just want to point out, right, at this point, you have a fully baked AstraDB database built on Apache Cassandra, 3-node cluster, and you have your token, your authorization token. You actually have everything you need right now to hook up an app and start moving. That's what we're going to do next, right? So you're good to go at this point from the database standpoint. All right, so while those are coming in, Cedric, do you want to move over to the next set of content?
Yes, I think, and if people are a bit late, they can keep doing the steps, and
that's right.
I will talk a little bit about theory, and in 5-10 minutes we will come back to hands-on. Again, we like the session to be dynamic, and we're bringing a lot of energy, so let's move on. Yeah.
And Nur, I do see your comment there. If I'm going too fast, yell at me. You can totally yell at me. And I will slow down, but that's why we're trying to give you a moment to kind of like catch up and everything. Plus you can always go back. This is self-service, right? You can always kind of go back and replay if you need to.
Exactly. Screen at David in the chat, and I will screen at David for
yes, please, by all means, you can yell at me. I'm watching. All right, yeah, but we're not going to open Gitpod just yet. We're going to actually move over to Cedric's screen so we can talk a little bit more.
Yeah, but it's coming pretty soon.
Yes,
don't worry. Not a lot of theory again.
All right, Cedric, you ready?
I am. Tell me when I have my screen shared.
Oh, you're totally live. You're so live.
Okay, I'm so live. I'm
so
alive.
Live.
I'm happy. Let's move on. Okay, so just a little bit of work regarding Spring, the Spring framework, which is probably the most known framework in the Java community right now. Spring is everywhere. I had a chance to use and to learn about Spring 15 years ago. It was not called the Spring at that time. It was still called Interface 21. Yes, I'm pretty old. But at the core of the framework, and what made the framework super successful upfront, was 2 paradigms. So first, it brings some lightweight stuff, challenging the big old application server like IBM, WebSphere, stuff like that. You can do the same without any application server, and you took control of the full stack. Okay, it was super good. I know it might sound weird that now Spring at that time was considered as lightweight, because now any Spring Boot app you start is like 50 megabyte. But yeah, this is how it was. So that the first principle. Second is what is called the inversion of control. When you code, you will define only the interface in a Java interface. So here on screen is greeting service with a single method called say hello. Then you implement that interface in another class. So say hello. Here is one of the super basic implementation, but you can and you will have multiple implementation for the same service. So you might ask, why would you do that? Well, the first use case at that time was to do some mocking. I provide you the interface of the service you will have to use later, and I also provide you a mock that will always answer the same, respond the same data, but at least you know what the output look like and you can start working. So it's in a sentence, it introduced loose coupling between the service definition and the service implementation, and really it was key. And starting with that, it was found on every single layer. The API layer controller had loose coupling with the service layer, loose coupling with the DAO, so technical layer to interact with data, and so forth and so on. So super flexible component working as layers. But right now, Spring is huge. I've dozens and dozens of modules. So you use the module that you need for your needs. You can see that you can do microservices. This is what we will do today. Reactive. So we do have session here on the channel using Spring Wake Flux and all the reactive stack. You can do Spring Cloud, web apps, serverless, event-driven batch, and even many, many more like Spring Cloud Data Flow and on a lot of stuff. Today, we will use the microservice stack leading by Spring Boot. So Spring Boot really is the runtime of your application. It's really providing a working application out of the box. You just create a new Spring Boot application and it just runs out of the box. Okay. Under the hood is using an application server like Tomcat. Okay, there is no magic, but all the details are hidden to you. What you will start is really a main. And because each application, each component, each microservice does have its own runtime, it's super easy to scale. Just pop up this instance. And now, everything's work on Docker. So when you need to scale out an application, you want to keep popping new Docker containers, and having everything in a Spring Boot is pretty easy to deploy on a Docker container and quite lightweight. You do not pay for the big AV application server stack. You are using really the thin layer like Netty or Tomcat. The Spring application is no different, multiple layers. So persistence layer, DAO repository, then business layer, what we call service or component, and presentation layer. Spring can do everything. You can expose presentation just as a REST API or a view controller and create some full stack application with views. And the framework to do the view part in Spring is really Spring MVC alongside with something called TimeLeaf or a free marker. But as of today, the app is using TimeLeaf, but you don't have to code for that. We will mostly focus on how to retrieve data from the database and show that on the UI. So it's simplify your build configuration. And then I think the key reason of the success of Spring Boot is what we call the starters. You do have your Java project using your dependency with Maven, so your pom.xml or Gradle, and I need some monitoring. Well, in your POM, just add a starter to enable monitoring. Oh, I need some, GMS. Okay, enable the starters. You have GMS. I need to invoke some HTTP endpoint. Okay, use the REST template, Spring Web, and there's the full galaxy of starters to do a numerous kind of use cases. And guess what? At the very end today, you will use the Spring Boot Astra starters because, hey, why not? Okay, in Spring Multiple Stack, so we will use the regular stack. So Spring Data to access the data, Spring MVC to expose some REST and a web view. I dropped the Spring Security just to have everything free and simple for us in the 2 hours. We are using the servlet, so easy. But you should always know that there is a reactive stack. But if you put a finger in the reactive stack, everything should be reactive because so the controller using Webflux, the Spring Data repository, Spring Data reactive. Because if you introduce some code that is blocking, on the contrary of reactive, the application won't even start. Spring will tell you, hey, I've seen that you do have this lock somewhere, so I cannot guarantee that your app will run as you expect. Okay. So with that, let's look at these Spring Boot app. So now we do have Cassandra running in Astra. To integrate with Cassandra, everybody use the drivers. Okay, DataStax is famous to provide the open source drivers for Cassandra that also work with Astra, obviously. Okay, and Spring Data reuse the drivers of DataStax. So that's quite important to understand that Spring Data is an abstraction layer providing you always the same interfaces. Remember, inversion of control. So you will create classes named repository. And then automatically or super quickly, you will have all the method like find by ID, find all, save by ID, delete, search. And you don't have to know the SQL code because it's done for you. But under the hood, Spring Data is using the drivers. And then the DAO is injected in the service layer. Even if I don't think we do have a service layer will be there. You will do some aggregation and composition for data coming from multiple sources. But in this application, we are only using Astra. So maybe I even skip the service layer. And finally, the exposition layer, you will see two endpoints. One is REST. It's a good way to see how can you do a RESTful service with Spring Boot, and the Spring MVC, so the web view that you have just seen in the demo. Okay, this is the drivers that doing quite a lot for you. You do have the slide in the repo. I don't like to read slides. It's doing a lot. Okay.
Yeah, and I just dropped the slide deck to Ruben in the repo. Yeah.
Okay. All right. But yeah, so the Stargate demo that we will start on Gitpod in a moment is a Spring Boot app using Spring Data. So remember, Spring Data Starter, and it will be even Spring Data Cassandra Starter, and it will create you the bin you need to work with Cassandra in Spring. But again, no magic. It's reusing the Java driver. So it's your choice to go to the Java driver route or to use Spring Data to ease a little bit things and speed up. And we will use Gitpod for that. And I think I've been speaking for 10 minutes already. That's too much for hands-on workshops. So go back to hands-on, go back with David, and let's start this application for God's sake.
Alrighty, so let's do it. Popping back over. So we should at this point, if you are following along, be at step 5, launch Gitpod. So hopefully at this point you've created the database, the key space, you've inserted You created a table, inserted some data. You've done, you know, the background batch, and we're all set from the data standpoint. Now, as Cedric just said, we want to launch Gitpod. We want to launch our IDE and get going with some of the code. So at step 5, launch Gitpod, what I want to point out is this big opening Gitpod button. Again, I'm going to middle click, right click, you know, open a new tab, however you want to do that. Now, here's the key thing. For this button to do, to work properly, you're going to want to be in Chrome or Firefox. It uses this refer link kind of capability that Gitpod has, and it will automatically start initializing your content. If you get an error or something that says, I'm trying to refer not found, it tells me you're probably in an unsupported browser. Now you can make that work and all, but there's a special way that you need to do it. You actually have to go, and matter of fact, I can explain it. If we run into that, I guess I can explain how to do it real fast for those who maybe have an unsupported browser. So if you go to, say, let me just grab this real fast. There we go. I hit the wrong key. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that we put from refer here.
Yeah, we do. Oh, that's right. It might work for everybody because we don't need to use the from refer. You're right, Cedric. So nobody, ignore what I just said. Nobody needs to worry about it. All right. So
yeah, you know, I
forgot.
Obvious and easy, David.
Yeah, and Jay, I'm using Brave as well, and Cedric is right. I forgot we're not using from refer here. It should just open up, and you should see something that looks like this.
Yeah, no big deal. It should work for everybody now. I shared the link of the Gitpod here in the chat. You know, when we do have issue with Brave is when you need to clone that repo first, do some edits on your copy, and then start Gitpod. Because now Gitpod is a bit lost. It doesn't know if you need to load your copy or the original repo. But here, there is no clone. You will only edit stuff in Gitpod and no need to fork.
Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, that's right. Vikram, if you're still creating at step 5, that's fine. Gitpod might take a moment to launch because what we're doing with Gitpod, this is actually really, really cool. There's a Gitpod YAML in here, but it's actually, we're going to preload a bunch of your libraries and extensions, all sorts of fun stuff, right? So where you want to get those, you see this build success, right? So you'll see it actually went through and installed stuff, and then it builds. That's where we want to get. As a matter of fact, we explain it right here. It's already doing a Maven clean install and such like that for you. And let us know when you've gotten to this point, right? Yeah, I can make it bigger. Yeah, I can. It just, you know, it's funny. If I make it bigger, it starts to get really funny on my screen. But I can, hopefully this is a little easier to read like this. But you should see where it's already done the Maven clean install. And then we can move on to step 6. Oh, Jay, if it's asking to log in, it's because in order to use Gitpod, you do need to log into GitHub, right? So this is where I mentioned earlier that if you don't have a GitHub account, you will need one. Again, the registration is completely free and all that should just take a moment, but you will need to log in to use Gitpod.
And why do you need some GitHub account? This is when you come back later to gitpod.io, you can retrieve your workspace. It's probably snapshot and somewhere, and you can start again where you left. So not only it's 100% valuable, free cloud-based IDE, but it can also save your state, and you know you can even share your state of your IDE with others. We love Gitpod at DataStax. You know, you should all know that.
That's right. Now, I do see a question here. For the life of me, I'm trying to figure out how to say this handle. It looks like absorbent. I'm not sure, but it says, the question is, what exactly was built in the background when we are starting this Gitpod? So what's really cool here is, I mean, this is a Java app that is powered by Maven and Spring, right? So if you take a look at the POM, if you're familiar with Maven, if you look at the POM XML, you'll see in here all of these dependencies and such like that. When we run the Maven clean install, that's the part, and that's being run automatically. That's part of what Gitpod is doing here for us. You can see it's actually going and it's installing all the libraries and everything like that we're going to need for the app. So if you're looking for, if you want the details and what was actually done, that's where you take a look at that Gitpod YAML. You can see exactly what it's doing and everything. So if you're, again, if you're familiar with like Maven or something like that, that should look pretty familiar to you. Okay, so I did see a couple thumbs up. Again, let us know if you've got this loaded. And then I'm going to move on to step 6 here, know your Gitpod. So when you're using Gitpod, if notice this URL I have, right? This is generated for me, right? This is my own unique instance that's up on the cloud. But from an application standpoint, right, this part isn't that useful yet, because when I go to run this thing, I probably need to access it like port 8080 or something that's pretty standard. But since I'm not in my local development, I'm not just going to be going to localhost, right? That is where this GP URL. So this is part of the CLI in Gitpod. So I'm saying Gitpod's URL 8080. So when I put this into my terminal, and by the way, the first time you try to input a copy command, it's going to say, hey, will you allow this? I'm going to say yes. And it's going to give you this endpoint, right? So it'll actually generate an endpoint. It's going to open a port and generate an endpoint here for you. Notice that my port is part of the endpoint. This is what I'm going to use to access my application later. Okay, so this just something to keep an eye on. Okay, so first thing I want to do is step 6B. So now we're going to use Maven to build the project and everything. Now, funny enough, I'm pretty sure, Cedric, you already did this in the Gitpod, but I guess we'll do it again just to make sure that we have all the things. So again, it's gonna use our
Yes.
POM XML and
yes, I've used something called a pre-build to download stuff to make it as fast as possible for you.
Pravin, yes, if your tests in 8 are failing because you're ahead of us, you may not have filled out your application props and stuff like that. So we'll get there. All right, so we're just going to go through, okay, that should have hopefully been a success, right? Again, at this point, we haven't done anything with the database just yet. Hopefully you see that. We'll move on to step 7 here. Now, this is an important step. You want to get this right. Now, this goes back, if you remember, when we created our token, and I said, leave this screen up in another tab, this is why. I was making this easy. If you downloaded your token credentials and stuff in a file, this is where you're going to want to pull that up, right? So what we want to do here is we want to go to our application YAML, right? So again, this is in the repo. I'm just going to step through it. So if I get a source, main, resources, I'm going to double click on application YAML. I pretty much want to scroll almost all the way to the bottom. The properties we're looking for at the very bottom from line 38 on and the asterisk section. Notice these credentials. Notice how I've got these sections here, right? I need to replace that with the various values. So where are these coming from? Okay, so the client ID, if you remember over here, we have our token, and look, I have a client ID. I'm just going to copy it. There's a little copy widget right there. I'm going to come over, I'm going to replace the whole thing and paste that in. Now, for the client secret, same thing. I'm going to come over to the secret, copy it over, and replace, the less than, greater than symbols, all of that, the whole thing. And it does. It looks like just a big, long, crazy alphanumeric string, because that's what it is. And then the last one, the token. Now, key thing about the token is, yes, it does include this *CS:*. That is part of it, absolutely, right? So I want to pull all of those values. Okay. Now, the next 3 here for Cloud Region and Database ID, I should say really Cloud Region and Database ID. Now, there's a set of different ways I can get this data. One, if I come back to my detail view, if remember I was at my CQL console before for my workshops database, if I go to the Connect tab, you see that right here next to it, I click on Connect. The default with Document API is fine. You'll notice it actually gives you the values right here. This is one way you can do it. So the region, I just want to pull that out. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to paste that in here. Now that region, by the way, that was created when we created the database. Remember, you picked a provider and a region, right? That's where that came from. So we're just literally pulling them out. And then the next one here is going to be my database ID. This is a unique identifier for my database. That's important because we want the application to talk just to that one database. Now, at this point, if you've gotten here and you've filled all of these out, you're good to move on again. Yeah, Previn, you can always generate another token. That's totally cool, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you can always generate another token. And Yubir, yeah, if you want me to do it again, I'm happy to do it. I'll just do it one more time. So again, if you notice, I went to source, main, resources. That's where my application YAML is. I just double click that to open it here. And if you scroll down to the bottom of your application YAML, steps 38 on, or rows 38 on, that's the section we want to update. And you'll see those fields we want to change. All right, hold on. I've got a dog who is here.
Seems like you get a guest. You have a guest,
right? I have a guest. I have a guest. Usually he wants in. Today he apparently wanted out.
It's live. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there you go. Let's see. Oh, why do we need to provide?
We need to provide cloud region in the props. It's a distributed database, and the same database will and can live in multiple regions. So in each region, you do have some endpoints. So to build the URL to contact the database, you need both the database and the database region.
That's right.
Yes. So GitHub autosave, it's enabled by default. I think I'll enable that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The cloud, it's ready for document and anything related to REST of GraphQL API. To connect to CQL, what you will have to provide is login, client ID, password, client secret, and a zip file. But hey, we are using some magic that do it all for you.
And absorbent database ID is the cluster ID from the homepage. Yeah, they're the same. They're the same thing. Not just yet, Lego. You can't put in multiple regions just yet. Just one. Yeah. Okay. All right. And by the way, you know, and just to clarify, I think Cedric was just mentioning this a moment ago. Depending on the API you're using, you may need a subset of all of these, but because this application is exposing and using multiple APIs, that's why we're actually filling out, you know, all of them essentially. Okay, so if you've gotten to the point where you've updated your application YAML and you've got all your settings in place, we want to then go to step 8, run some unit tests, because this is now going to test that very connectivity, right? It's going to ensure that this all works. So I'm going to go to step 8A. We're going to start with the CQL session. I'll just, whoa, don't do what I did, and paste that into your application YAML, because that's not going to work. I guess my cursor was in a different spot.
Yes, so I see a highest level of questions. So okay. Can you rewind, let's say 5 minutes? Can you just show in Astra how you created the token and where did you find the region, please?
Absolutely, let's do it. Okay, so going back to Astra for a moment. Okay.
And the database ID. So first, the token.
Okay, so on the top left-hand side in your Astra dashboard, you should see this organization tab. So if I click on the drop-down here, say organization settings. Now my suggestion to you is I'm right-clicking and saying open link in a new tab. It just makes it easier later on when you want to get the values out. From here, once I've gone again to organization settings, I want to go to token management. Click on token management. You'll see this drop down for the role. Choose database administrator and say generate token. Once I do that, I'll get my tokens, leave this up, right? Leave this up. This, if you notice, that's where the client ID, client secret, and the token are coming from that we used here at lines 41 through 43. And again, it's always a good idea to download your token details, because once you navigate away from this page, you will not be able to see those again. That is for security reasons. It's the same thing that the major cloud providers and everybody does on this one. Now, I think the second question was, where are you getting the database ID or the cluster ID? There's a couple different ways to do it. One, if I were to back in my regular dashboard and I saw this screen, right? Notice right here for my actual database, here's the database ID with a little copy widget. So that's one way to get it. Another way I could get it, if I go into the detail view, I'll see this cluster ID. It's the same exact thing. I could get it there.
Here you do have the cluster
Okay.
ID and the region on this
Yes,
screen.
that's right. Yeah, that is one way. I could use this screen to get both the region and the cluster ID. I could totally do that. Another way to do it, if I go to the Connect tab up here, and then any of these APIs, they'll give me all of the values, right? So I have the database ID and the region and stuff. So there's a bunch of different ways you can get those. Hopefully that cleared it up for you. Now he wants back in. That's funny. All right, so hopefully that gave you what you needed.
Should not have any compilation error, you know.
Yeah, if you get an error, let us know what the error is. Because I have a hunch. Let me try something. I have a hunch. If I invalidate one of my keys, like, do I need the application? Do I need the token for the CQL? For a CQL session?
No.
Or is that just, I think it's client ID and client secret, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, I'll invalidate one of those then. Yeah, that's right, because that's for the other APIs.
Yeah, just looking for I see all your question. So get key is undefined, get name is undefined. So that means Lombok did not generate the setters and getters and setters. So, but you know, it should be.
Did they run the Maven install, the clean install? I mean, that should have been done, but just to make sure.
It's in the instruction, but let me.
Okay, I do want to point something out. I invalidated my client secret on purpose, right? So if like you fat finger something here, if this isn't right, then look at what happens. So ensure that your keys are all correct when you are running the tests, because that might be the reason why some of you are getting an error. Yeah, just make sure you've got that full thing in there.
Yeah, so really compilation error are weird because we did not change any piece of code.
Right.
Try a full rebuild and I give you the command. So maven clean package install dash maven test keep true. You should not need maven test keeps true if you provide the proper tokens. Right. But you know, we never know.
And Yoshi, if you change the key space name when you were creating it in Astra, you're going to get an invalid key space error because the application, if you notice, is expecting Stargate, right? That's why we ask you to use the key space value in the very beginning, because all the rest of the stuff is based off of that. So if you used a different key space, you will need to update the configuration and stuff to use that new key space, or just go and create a new database with that name. Okay, you change it in the application. Yeah. Cedric, are there any other, is it just the application YAML for the key space name, or are there other areas that may be looking to that?
That's really just the application YAML. But you know, if you got some compilation error, yeah, try to do a full rebuild. I put you the command. Seems like Vinesh validated that for somebody the Lombok not doing his job. Okay. So now people seems to say, yeah, so they need to clean. I see. Yep. Yeah. It's coming.
Do some clean builds. Okay, good. It looks like the Maven clean pack, that looks like that did it for a lot. Cool. Yep. All right, good. So what's interesting about that is that Gitpod does run that in the beginning, but I guess it needed extra cleaning. It was dirty. It felt dirty. Okay, so hopefully I saw a lot of folks saying that they got through step A. So then the next thing we want to test is Spring Data with 8B. Right, so we're going to run the next test for that one. All right, and so this is really just validating that the values that we put in for the various properties here are correct, right? And we should hopefully see a bunch of green, you rock, so on and so forth. Oh, thanks, Nur. All right, and then hopefully if you saw if that worked out for you, we want to go to this last one under step 8b, right, to just find some coordinates. Again, just doing some initial tests. Cool, Cassandra, thank you. Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
And step 7 is done. Woohoo! Good job. We're like
Harshit,
9A. So some folks are step 9 already. Whoa.
Yeah, and Harshit, what's the command not found in Gitpod? Which command are you running? That's interesting.
Okay. Command not found. Yeah, that's weird. So the command I've used with Maven, first clean. So clean is meaning completely remove the previous build in the folder target. Then I did package. Why package? Because most of the time the Lombok framework, the one that will generate get and set, is attached to the package phase in Maven. And finally install. Maybe it's overkill. It's just saving all the jar, the libraries that you have just built in target into your local Maven repository. And finally, the latest piece, -d maven test.skip, is to say, hey, when you build, do not try to run the unit test. Again, the unit test should be okay as long as you provide the proper values in application.yaml. But hey, right, here we were not sure, so I just add do not run the test. Anyway, the end of point 7 is to run those tests.
All right.
So Maven does -v. Yeah. Okay. So that's.
Okay. And Matthew Phillip, the commands that I'm using are here in the repo. So the ones that we just went through were at step 8. I'll go ahead and give you that link. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be easier than us trying to type them all because they're all right there in the repo for you. Okay. Let me do this. All right. So I saw a bunch of people got with us through the steps. I saw, interestingly, Harshit was saying that the Maven command was saying it wasn't found. So I'm curious to see what a Maven-v does. Because if for some reason that's not there, I wonder if Gitpod just did something interesting, because Maven should totally be there. Oh, Gordon Moore says, where does the Gitpod project know the connection details for Astra? That's what we're doing in our application YAML in the Java project itself. This is where the connection details are, right? That's exactly what's going on. When we tell it the token, when we give it the region, the database ID and stuff. Now, that's the authentication piece. If you're asking, well, how does it know where to connect? I wonder if that's the case. You know, Cedric, where are you? Are you using any of the Secure Connect bundle, or are you just going through the APIs?
No. We are using the Cloud Secure bundle, but it's downloaded for you under the hood.
Yeah. So Gordon Moore, what's happening here is that there is the Astra SDK, right? That, matter of fact, Cedric wrote, the Astra SDK is responsible for allowing you to connect through all the various APIs and such like that. There is, and I'll show you. I'll just show this to you. So that way it's not so abstract. So if I go back to Astra, and in my database, I go to Connect tab here. Let's say I'm in Java, which we are. I click on Java. Notice the secure bundle here. What is this about? So this is something we're doing for you automatically behind the scenes with the Astra SDK when you provide the values that we're putting in our application YAML. But what it's doing is actually using the backend DevOps API, and it's downloading this bundle for you. If you were to explode that bundle or untar it or whatever, in it you would find all of the connection values for the endpoint it's talking to for your database, the SSL, TLS information, stuff like that. All your keys and everything are there, right? But instead of, and if anyone here has ever done SSL in Java, it's so fun. Instead of having you have to figure all that out, it's essentially encapsulated in the Secure Connect bundle, and the SDK automatically downloads that for you. So by providing these values the SDK is just getting for you, and it's already including it in part of your application, so you don't need to worry about it. So if you're curious, how did it know what to connect to? That's where it is. It's in the Connect bundle, but we did that for you so you didn't have to. I did see another question that I want to... okay, awesome, Gordon. Thank you. I did see another question about the APIs. Yes, this application, along with the SDK, are in fact exposing the document, REST, and GraphQL APIs. And these, again, if you go back to Astra in that Connect tab, notice there's document API, Graph, and REST. Each one of these actually has an endpoint that you can use. That is being exposed specifically for your instance, your database, right? And that's what you see. These are all being exposed in each case. I mean, this is just a Swagger API. But that is part of what AstraDB is doing for you. This is actually that part that Cedric was talking about called Stargate. Stargate adds these APIs. As a matter of fact, if any of you are open source Cassandra users, you can also use Stargate. It's completely open source, right? You can tag it onto your cluster and you can expose these same APIs. But this is part of what AstraDB is giving you right out of the box. So yes, through the app, we're exposing all of those, and that's what the SDK is telling us here. All right. How are we doing on questions, Cedric? I'm just trying to see. I see a couple of folks. Sandesh is looking for the commands for the clean build. So one place you can find them, Sandesh, in your project, if you go to the Gitpod YAML, you'll see it at the root. If I open that up, notice right here, the command that you need is right there. So it is there in the Gitpod YAML. Or you could just do a Maven, you can see this Maven clean package install, right? All right, so I'm trying to just get a gauge if I want to move on, because running the application is part of the fun. Yeah, Nitin, if your application's not running, you try to go to 8080, it's not going to be open and exposed. So we'll do that here next. All right, so hopefully at this point you were able to get through your tests, right? Let's go ahead and move on to run the application. So I'm going to go to step 9, run the application. First thing here is going to be this is a Spring Boot app. So you'll see this Maven Spring Boot run. What's going on?
No,
nice.
I'm just keeping answering questions on Discord, direct issues. But yeah, some folks start saying that the demo is cool, so love it. So looking, somebody is stuck at 8A. So let me 8A. So many steps in this end zone. 8A. Okay, so it's really the first test. So maybe you have a compilation error. So let's try to execute the command I give before. Maven clean package install.
Okay.
We'll do the job.
All right, let's see. All right, so if you're with me in step 9, while Cedric is supporting some folks in the chat and everything like that, hopefully you've done the Maven Spring Boot run. You should see something that looks like this, right? Then what we want to do is we're going to issue us some other commands, but we want to leave the application running. So we want to open up a new terminal. Now, there's a couple different ways you could do this. One, though, you'll notice this little widget right there, right? Looks like a window, right? Split terminal. Click that. It'll give you a new terminal. That's, I think, the quickest way, really, to do it. You can also go up to the hamburger menu in the top left-hand corner and go to Terminal, New Terminal. Either way, right? Either way, it's fine. Now, this command, this GPURL 8080, what it's saying is gitpod URL 8080. And if you remember before, I said that gitpod is generating an endpoint for you to use for your app at a specific port. Well, the application's running at 8080, right? So we're telling it, hey, generate me a URL endpoint at 8080. And you'll see a link like this. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to put it in a new tab. And if everything is working, I should see, yes, I should see my Stargate, right? So I've got my, it's the started Stargate demo application. Here we go. I've got my Stargate. I'm going to blow this up a little bit like that. Right. Now, with this, I can choose a destination, maybe Chilak, and then click my chevron.
Come on.
All 6 chevrons, plus the destination, right? There we go. Woohoo! Yeah, hopefully that's not too loud. Yeah, I'll repeat it, Harshit. Oh, that's really coming through. Well, I gotta turn that down. That's really loud. There we go. Woo! All right, we've gone to Chulog.
Okay, so to run the app, I think it was...
Yeah, that's loud, isn't it? Yeah, sorry about that. Here, let me turn that off. Woo, that was loud. Sorry about that, everyone. It was a little too loud, maybe. All right. All right, so hopefully, you know, the front end is just kind of a fun thing on what the back end is really doing. But notice I had to click all the chevrons. I choose a destination, and then you essentially go there, right? So let's see. Yeah, exactly. Exactly with the volume slider or something like that. Yeah, make sure that you just don't click the destination. You got to click the chevrons too. You got to tell the chevrons.
So the chevron is the small triangle.
Yes, you see them lighting up
the wheel. So yeah, click the triangle and then start rotating.
Right. I'm going to click all of them. You got to light them all up. Yeah, Srini, exactly. Gonna watch the Stargate series after all this. Right, and then once you do that, you will teleport to your destination. Which isn't that cool? Isn't that cool, right? Now, the cool thing is, in order for this to work, though, in order for you to get to this point where this is working, all of the backend APIs and the database configuration and stuff, that all has to be correct. This means you have a working app and that you are connected and functioning. And this section here in 9 is really just turning on the chevrons and everything. All right. All right, give us a thumbs up if you let us know you're here. I will say this though, if you're struggling a little bit with 8 and 9, if you were getting some compile errors, you're working through that, you may want to come back to it later and follow us in step 10 anyway, because you should be able to do this with us. Because now we'll get into like kind of using some of the API and stuff, like, you know, especially from the REST API. Yeah, I see lots of thumbs up. And to the Tibeashek, you need the certificate. Yes. So once you finish, if you have the working app, at the very bottom of the repo, there is a homework section. Just follow the instructions and submit your stuff, and you can get the badge that way. Okay, if you're getting Harshit, if you're getting port 8080 not found, right? That tells me maybe the app is not running. Make sure to run that GPURL command after that so you can get your endpoint, right? But that tells me the app isn't running.
That's the magic moment where everybody just seeing the wheel spinning. That's the best moment.
All right, so I'm going to move on to step 10, just to make sure. I want to make sure we have enough time to get through our swag quiz and everything. So this is really cool. This next one's 10A. We're going to use Swagger here. We're going to use it locally. This is another reason why we opened up another terminal here. So I'm going to copy this command to do the open swagger.shell.sh.
Yes,
I'm going to put that in my other terminal.
We're skipping a bit of slides on purpose. So now, until now, we were only using the core Cassandra and the drivers and Spring Data. Okay, so you can navigate the code and you will see some repository and you will see just Spring Data code. Now, in the end, we will switch, not using Spring, but showing you how to use the APIs.
Right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this into my terminal. Notice that it launches a Swagger API in the simple browser. Now, here's the thing. You can do it in here. That's fine. But I think it's a better experience if you put this in a new tab. So if you notice the little widget, the Open in Browser one here on the very, very top right of the simple browser, just click that. And that'll launch this nice Swagger interface right into my full tab. Much, much more readable this way. And then we're just going to now Swagger. What this does, this exposes all the REST endpoints. Now I mentioned before that with AstroDB you get Stargate.io, which essentially extends Cassandra to allow things like a REST API, GraphQL, a document DB, gRPC, stuff like that right out of the box, right? Swagger exposes all of those REST endpoints. So it's a really nice, especially when you're developing and you're trying to figure out, well, what REST endpoint do I need for this or that, or how do I use it? That's where Swagger comes into play, right? So we're just going to experiment with Swagger a little bit. So if you could follow me to 10B, right? Now, notice a couple things here, because there's a lot of endpoints, right? You'd be like, oh, how do I find which one he's looking at? Notice we tell you in block data and what the endpoint is. So now, by the way, a trick, if I click on those, the blocks, it'll automatically collapse them. So, here's data, right? And then I'm looking for retrieve all rows. Specifically, V1, so retrieve all rows. This is this top one. Now, in order for me to do anything, this will give me like it'll give me the structure of what's needed. But in order to do anything, I need to click this try it out button. And the first thing I need to fill in is that token. I need to authenticate. So remember before I said, hey, we're going to need to authenticate, right? Keep this up. That's why I was saying that. So I'm going to take my token, the one with the asterisk CS. I'm going to put that in this token field. And I have to hit the right key for that to work. There we go. Now the rest of the values are given to you. See the key space name is Stargate. So I'm just going to literally cut and paste these in. Page size. Oh yeah, those don't worry about. Did the API update a little bit? No. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Somehow I went blind. Okay. And chevrons. There we go. I missed table name even though it was right in front of me. So notice I've got my key, Stargate, and chevrons. Once I've done this, I'm going to say execute. What's cool about this is I'm actually using this endpoint here, right? I'm using the endpoint here where I'm going to retrieve all rows from a particular key space and a table. And these should look familiar, right? Here's the 39 chevrons we inserted originally. And what's also really cool about the Swagger piece is that it shows you all the different types of responses you could have. These are not the responses you're seeing. These are the responses you have. So if you notice, I got a code 200, which says I'm okay, right? It's just telling me I'm okay. But if I would have seen like a 400 or 401, right? That'll tell you that they just give you all the codes that you could possibly have. All right, great. So we retrieved all the tables. Wonderful. We can look at another example. Now that, by the way, if you notice here, that was just using, let's see if I scroll up here for you. That is just using the base REST API. Now there's a document API that is in Stargate as well, and that is also exposed via REST. So if I go to the document section, again, this is going to be step 11. So now I'm going to open up and look at the document API. So what's really cool here is I can actually use Swagger. I can even use REST to create and interact with documents separate from the document API. There's multiple ways I could do this, right? So I'm going to the documents section. I'm looking for create a new document. Notice V2, I want the V2 create a new document. So I want to say, here we go, V2, create a new document. Again, I want to say try it out. Again, I'm going to put in my token, right? I want that handy. And the other fields are given to me. So the namespace, Stargate, and the collection ID is sample doc. Now the body, you see this default string, make sure we replace the whole thing. We're giving you the JSON. So in this case, if you're not familiar with documents, they're JSON blobs, really. So this is just JSON. What's really cool about the document API is you can work with native JSON objects. You don't need to marshal, unmarshal, or do anything with them. You just work with them natively. And you will create that. And this is actually, when you do this, this will automatically be stored in an optimized format in the database for you. It allows you to retrieve it, to search by it, all sorts of things. And if you're successful, right? Okay, you see a code 201 created. Here's my 201, and here's my document ID. So it successfully created that document. And so this is just an example, by the way, of being able to use the REST API to create a JSON document, a native JSON document. All right. Cedric, how are we doing before I go on to the next thing? How are we doing? Is there anything pressing we need to answer or whatever?
I do have questions ongoing, some issue I try to resolve. This is why I'm quiet. But so far so good. Super interesting question. We had some folks asking, how do I create the schema if I already have the Java code? And say I was answering that Spring Data allow you to generate schema based on your beans, on your code. But it's not really recommended. With Cassandra, you really want to start with your schema because tables are really based on the queries you would like to do. So to build a Cassandra application that really, hey, list all the queries I need. Based on that, create the tables and only then create the object. Otherwise, you will try to use the same object for multiple queries and it will be slow.
Yeah. And Alan Patterson, did I say that right? Patterson, sorry, Alan. Alan Patterson asked an excellent question. Why do I need to provide the client ID, client secret, and application token when in the application YAML, but only the application token when using the REST API? That's a really good observation. Here's what's going on. In the case that we're using the REST API, you're correct. All I need here is the token. But in our application, we provided all of the values because the application through the SDK actually uses all of the APIs. It's using, if you noticed, there's REST, there's GraphQL, there's CQL, all of them. That's why we needed to provide all of these values, where in the case of the REST API, all we actually need is the token. So it's just because that the application has more capability. That's all that really means. It's just exposed to more than one API. Okay. Manu asks, what is the exact use of Stargate? What we're doing, do you mean the application itself or the Stargate APIs? Because what we're doing right now with the REST API, JSON documents, things like that, that's actually enabled through Stargate. If you're asking about the Stargate app itself, this demo app that we're running, I mean, Cedric might have more to say about this, but it's really an example app that shows you ways to use the different APIs that are available to you for Cassandra and AstraDB. I don't know if there's more you want to say to that, Cedric.
Yeah, that's indeed, that's really just to show you what it can do. So I've not shown the slide to go fast, but Stargate is a proxy on top of Cassandra. This proxy exposing some APIs. So it's cool because now you can scale only the compute layer. You can add as many Stargate instances as you wish without having to scale the data nodes. So that's first point. Then now it's a REST API. So you as a client, you can use a stateless component now because previously with the drivers, you are stateful. You need to have a connection with all the nodes in your database. So it's easier. For Java folks, we love drivers, but having the API is, why not? For front end, it's all about the APIs.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I can definitely say from a development standpoint, if you're doing like prototyping, a greenfield project or something like that, the APIs make it extremely easy to just get going, right? You can even argue, I know in the Java world, we don't really talk about storing documents so much compared to what we might in the front end full stack world with like JavaScript or something. But the document API requires no schema, right? You can just talk to it over a library and start using JSON objects. So again, from a prototype standpoint, it's wonderful to just get going. And at some point, if you then kind of, you can expand past the APIs if you want, it's all there. All right. Yes. Schwedhunt, yeah. Stargate provides the API access to the AstraDB piece or Cassandra. I want to be very clear about that. Open source Cassandra, or actually any of the flavors of Cassandra, you can use Stargate with to expose these APIs, REST, document, GraphQL, gRPC, I think is happening or coming soon in Kafka, stuff like that. So yeah, Stargate is that API proxy layer. All right, so let's go. Michelle, depends on the schema, if it's V1 or V2, depending on the command. He does put them in here.
No, it's probably all V2.
Because the first one here is V1. The list of all the tables was V1, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. We should change that.
We probably should. Yeah. Astra is developed by DataStax. Yes, AstraDB is all DataStax. Okay, so I want to make sure we get through the rest of this stuff. So going to step 12, the walkthrough of the SDK, right? So we've kind of hinted that there's this Astra SDK that's doing a lot of fun work for you. So I'm going to just take a look at this real fast. So if we go back to our app, if you look at the POM XML, right? In here, this is for Maven. For those of you familiar with that, you're going to see this Astra Spring Boot Starter, right? So I want to say there it is. So you can see this is included. So you get a lot of really cool functionality with this. If you notice in 12a, I'm going to kill my app actually. There we go. Okay. So if I run 12a here, I'm going to go and do a test for the Astra SDK. And what's really neat about this, I love the fact that it shows you very clearly all of the main APIs that they're enabled, that they're working. You get the endpoints right there and everything like that. So if you're trying to figure out, say, how to work with any of the APIs, the SDK is a really nice way to start because it's doing it all for you, right? In this particular case, the end result should be to list out all the databases that you have and their information. So we're actually able to use what's called the DevOps API and the backend through the SDK that will expose all sorts of cool information. As a matter of fact, you can use that to create databases. You can create key spaces and all sorts of objects and everything right there with it. So you can essentially do a lot of this through the backend. All right. And then another couple examples. So you notice in this section how we're using the REST API. And then we'll use the document API, right? So these are just examples. So these tests are really good to just take a look at and run if you want to see examples on how to do these things. All right, see, in this example here, this is using REST, and you can see in this case now it uses the REST API to do this. Now, the test itself really isn't going to show you the code, but you can just go to one of these tests, right? So if you go into your main Java app, into tests, you'll see these tests are exactly what we're talking about. Here's the REST API one. So you can start to see, okay, how might I go about doing this, right? So they're a really nice way to kind of just start to figure out how to use the APIs. And the last one here at 12c is the document API. This also validates that your app is working, your configuration is there, all that kind of deal.
Yeah. Oh, you almost done. And that's good because we will hit the 10-minute alarm.
That's right.
I want to play.
Yeah, that's right. We got to get our swag quiz going. So in this last case here, again, this exposes and this tests against the document API. And you can see some of the information that is spit out from that. Again, if you want to take a look at the implementation and how that's being done. What's really neat here, by the way, I just want to point out, again, I realize that a lot of folks in the Java world, document database stuff is usually in more JavaScript, but look how easy this is, right? You define a namespace, you define your collection, and you can just start putting together documents. This is so simple. And, if I really wanted to, I could go back over to Astra and start taking a look at this. I mean, I guess I could, couldn't I? Go to the CQL console and take a look. Now, interestingly enough, if you view documents like, oh no, it's Stargate. We're using Stargate. Tables. There we go. There we go. Right? So if I say, now, admittedly, if I look at a document through CQL, it may not look all that clean just because this has been essentially kind of like cut up into a format that is useful for documents and storing JSON blobs. It could be anything, right? It could be nested objects, all sorts of things. But that is part of what Stargate is doing. It's actually automatically handling that for you, converting that into something that Cassandra understands and its data modeling and stuff. So the point being, you don't have to do this, right? All you need to do is interact directly with a document and its subfields and all that kind of deal. But you can see that it is in fact creating this stuff and it's doing that through all these. But yet here, all I need to do is, use my namespace or my key space, if you will, create a collection and start storing stuff, right? So again, it gives you a nice example of a way that I could do that right out of Java. Yeah, Tyrone, the Gitpod stuff is fun. Yeah, because it does allow you to kind of preload a lot of stuff, and then you can use that as kind of like a base. All right, so with that, Cedric, what do you think? Do you think we should move over to do our swag quiz? Or do you want to go, do we have some more content we need to go through?
David, take a deep breath. Okay, we can pause 20 seconds to let people just finish the last exercise.
Right, we'll let them get through.
I mean, yeah. So quiz, giveaways, and goodbye. I think we can make it all in 10 minutes. So yeah. So hey, look at that. We wait 1 minute and we do have some thumb up. So I think now we can move to the game.
All right, let's move over to the game. All righty, let's do it. All right.
Yes, so during the time David is moving to Menti, so the homework we will explain in the very end, but that's really just redo the steps we did today, and that's really mostly starting the app, do a screenshot, upload the screenshot for us to know that you make it, and I copy the link of the homework in the chat right now.
All right, and again, for those doing the swag quiz with us, you should already hopefully be in Menti. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're there. Use the QR code or the Menti code if you need to. I'll give everyone a moment to get back in. Okay. Let's see how we're doing. All right, I see a good amount of folks getting in. I'll give everybody just another moment. And you know something, let's change this to something fun. How about this? All right, let's play some games. Now, when you're doing the Menti in the quiz, speed matters. Speed and correctness. So ensure that you're looking at your phone for the questions, because there might be a little video lag, and you don't want to be watching the video and then get behind and lose some points, all right? All right, so I'll go to the next screen here. This will be the part where you get to put in your name. I'll give everybody a moment to do this. All right, wow. We got a good amount we have almost 200 folks in the game with us. That's awesome. All right, let's do it. First question. Again, answer fast to get more points. Which is not a part of the Spring ecosystem? Spring Boot, Spring Fields, Spring Web, or Spring Data? Which is not a part of the Spring ecosystem. All right, let's see what happens. The correct answer here was Spring Fields. That always reminds me of
Indeed,
Beatles album.
And I hear you laughing behind your keyboard. Springfield is not yet a Spring framework.
Yeah, but everything else is essentially.
Yeah,
all right, let's see
about Spring Boot, Spring Web, and Spring Data.
All right, let's see what our leaderboard looks like. Now, by the way, this is anybody's game with these. There's 1,000. You get 1,000 points each potentially. So Maverick is our top speed. In first place, Ronnie number 2, Tarun number 3. Let's see what happens with our next question.
Yeah, and I'm a bit afraid.
Oh, what is the name of the Tilak planet? Abydos, Tulane, Chulak, Atlantis. Was anyone who was paying attention to this one, right?
I mean, it was part of the demo, you know.
It was in there.
Need to be all technical, but you know the version of the drivers to use maybe would be a bit hard.
All right, the correct answer was Chulak. Now, if you got this wrong, Tulane was so close. Tricky, right? If you got this wrong, don't worry about it. Just go on to the next questions, because hopefully one of the people you're competing with fail.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what happened to our leaderboard.
Woohoo! Let's see.
So Andre takes the lead with the fastest time. Ronnie is number 2. Dudasabi?
I see some familiar names here.
Yeah,
okay,
I do too.
Second place. Okay, Andre was the fastest. Okay.
Dudasabi? All right. Maybe tell me how to pronounce that one in the chat. All right, so let's see. Question 3. Get some disco. Right. What does SDK mean? Software Development Kit. Serve Developer Knowledge. Server Direction Kubernetes. Save the Queen!
Only a non-native could come up with that
right.
as well, right?
Oh, by the way, don't put the answer in the chat. Put them in Menti. Yes, the correct answer. Almost everybody got that great. Is Software Development Kit. That's awesome. It's like a catch-up question, right? All right, let's see what our leaderboard looks like. Oh, we had 2. Whoa, oh, what? Wow, the 3 top people got the exact same time. That's amazing. I've never seen that happen. So we have Dudasabi, Atul, and Suresh. All right, let's see what happens in our next question. 4 of 7. What is Astra? Another catch-up question, right? All right, it is a local in-memory version of Cassandra. It is managed Cassandra with API and tools. It is a cloud-based IDE, or it's a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. Save that queen. Get some laughs out of that one. Oh, I've got the pronunciation. It's Dudasabi. Dudasabi. Got it. All right. All right. Yes, it is a managed Cassandra with API and tools. It is not just a local in-memory version. When you spun up your AstraDB, you actually got a fully featured database, which is based on a Cassandra, like a 3-node Cassandra cluster and everything like that. It is not a cloud-based IDE that is Gitpod. So AstraDB is an actual full cluster database for you. All right, let's see what happened to our leaderboard in this case. All right, so Dudasabi is in lead. Mohammed is in second. Ajay takes the 3rd spot. And question 5, we're almost there. We have a couple left.
Oh.
In Spring Data Cassandra 3x using the DataStax Java driver. Yes, version 3x. No. Yes, version 4x, or only when there was no other solution. This may not be a fair question, Cedric. What do you think?
It's tricky because,
it's a tricky one.
I told you about Spring Data Cassandra 3, and we did not cover a lot of the versions of Spring Data Java drivers. It was a driver slide when I moved fast, so if you have time to read, let's see.
So we got 32 folks got that one right. This was a tricky one. This was a tricky one. But
Yeah,
yes,
it was a tricky one. It was, it was kind of a trap. Yeah.
Yeah, this is using the 4x DataStax Java driver though, which is good because the version 4 driver is the latest one that you need that supports all the latest stuff. And Cassandra 4 was just released a 3 weeks ago, a month ago, or something like that. So and the version 4 driver supports all the Cassandra 4 stuff, so that's important.
Yeah, so we had a super easy question and super hard question.
Right? Yeah, this one goes all over the place. It's just like, you're like, man, I'm doing great. Oh, and look what happened to our leaderboard.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
All right, so see, we said it was anyone's game. We weren't kidding. So Jocelyn takes the lead.
Yeah, that give a chance to anyone, really,
Yeah. Nilesh is number 2 and Hardik in number 3. Sorry, Cedric, go ahead.
Okay.
What were you gonna say? Did I cut you off there? I'm sorry.
I just saying the last question would be easier. Okay.
Yeah, it is a little easier. All right, going on. We got 2 more. Let's see what happens. All right, which feature is introduced by the document API in Stargate? Schemaless, serverless, paper shredding, or paymentless? That's funny. Oh, tricky. Yes, it's schemaless. Serverless is actually introduced by AstraDB itself. It gives you a fully serverless database where the document API in Stargate is what enables the schemaless capabilities with JSON objects. All right, so let's see what happened to our leaderboard that time. Okay, so Nilesh maintains the lead, Rakesh in second, and Radha in third. I see some play, though, down at the bottom. We have one more question. Let's see what happens. Last one. All right, how many symbols are needed to dial a destination with the Stargate?
This one,
6.
I said it loud.
Yeah, you did say it multiple times. So 6 chevrons total, 5 chevrons plus the origin, 6 chevrons plus the origin, or ET dial home.
I was totally thinking at the question when I said loud.
ET dial, ET phone home. God, who remembers that movie from their childhood? Oh, yeah, it's 6 chevrons plus the origin. Plus the origin. Oh, let's see what happened to our leaderboard. This one always shreds the leaderboard. So Nilesh takes the lead. Raha keeps second, and Srini, with those fast times, popped it up in the third. So Nilesh, Radha, Srini, congratulations. Take a screenshot of this on your phone right now, because you are going to need that to submit over to jack.fryer@datedstacks.com. We'll show you that as well, to get your swag, right? So take a screenshot right now so you can get your prizes. All right, and with that, I'll move this over. Let's see. Cedric, was there anything else you want to talk to before we kind of close out, or you want to just go ahead and do that?
No, I think we are good. We're just on time. Now it's not just about reminder about the homework. Get a voucher to have the certification, and please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content.
That's right. So, for the badge, for the homework, so for those of you who want that badge, down at the very bottom, as a matter of fact, if you take a look at the repo, you'll see at the very bottom, section 13, homeworks. Really, you don't need to make screenshots of the whole thing. Just do a screenshot at the end. Save yourself some work. But notice section 2. Notice these links here, right? So there is something to do here at step 2, and then you just click the link to submit your homework in step 3. Okay? And that will give you what you need for the workshop itself, or for the badge. Then, for being here as a thank you, you scan that QR code, or we'll drop it as well. You can get yourself a voucher for 2 free attempts for either Cassandra certification or Cassandra certification, which is running Cassandra in Kubernetes and that whole ecosystem to do that. Those are $145 a piece, right? So that isn't small potatoes. Definitely take advantage of that. And there are multiple learning paths that are all for free, by the way. All of our learning and training is free in academy.datastacks.com. And these learning paths will give you all the information you need to get those certifications. As Cedric mentioned a second ago, we have weekly workshops, right? Go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, ring the bell. You'll get notifications for each of the workshops, and you'll see what's coming up. And if you haven't already, go to our Discord channel and join, because that's where we can follow on the conversation. And again, thank you so much. With that, I think we can say see you at the next one.
They need the code.
Oh, we haven't given them the code yet. Oh. All right, let's go back.
You went fast with the QR code. So,
all right, let me put it back. I'll put it back. I'm so sorry. Here you go. No, that code?
Yeah.
The voucher code? There you go. Voucher code. There you go.
Yes. Thank you, David. Thank you. So the voucher is great, but it has no value if you did not really took the time to do the courses. It's free, okay? Those courses are free, academy.datastacks.com. It's multiple hours of video. You will understand why the partition key and the primary key, and why you cannot put workloads wherever you like. It's free stuff, and certified professional get good job in the Cassandra world.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, these are worth it. These are totally worth it. All right. Well, hopefully everyone has that code. And I saw Alex spamming the link like crazy. So awesome. All righty. And with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, and now we're done.
All right, see ya.
Really enjoyed the session.
Yeah, totally.
Strong profiles today. Hope you enjoyed, and you will come back next week. And I think next week we are, I don't know, data modeling next week? I'm not sure. Go to datastacks.com/workshops to know what's coming.
All right, thank you, everybody. See ya. And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her, empowering them to achieve wondrous feats.